Hey guys, I'm Alexa with Strategic Placement Group. Welcome back to our SPG podcast. We're excited to be with you today. Joining me is our man Stan. You're my man. How you doing today?
Good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Good.
So you wanted us to do this today. What exactly are we talking about?
Yeah, so today I thought we would take a little bit different turn on the conversation and talk about political campaign advertising.
Political campaign advertising.
Yes.
This will be interesting. I like talking about political campaign advertising.
It's that time of year
Okay.
for, I believe, 47 out of the 50 states that have local and state elections in an even year. So again, obviously we're in an odd year now, but this is the time that people are planning for next spring and into fall.
That's right, because you got to have a plan. This is not something you jump into lightly.
Right. So a little background there. First of all, for you listening, yes, we're titling this a political discussion, but there is no reference to either side of the political spectrum.
Right. It's not really about politics.
Yeah, it's just about, as you possibly watching, hopefully you're watching, deciding to run for a certain elected office. So
Right. Could be something local, like your school board.
Sure. It could be a state house or a state senate seat. It could be a governor race.
Right, or
all this
district.
applies to everything across the board. But
Okay.
yeah, it could go down as low as, and I say low not meaning that it's a low job,
seat,
low
right.
seat, but low in the sense of a traditional amount of money spent
Sure.
in a campaign. So
Right.
down to a school board level. Usually those are not huge spending campaigns, right?
Okay. But you still have to have a lot of information and a plan for that kind of plan.
Right.
Campaign, just like you do for a bigger
But if we
campaign.
just stick with the conversation, talk about county races for now. So
Sure.
you compare like a school board or even a county commission race to, say, a sheriff race or a mayoral race or a judge race that's highly contested possibly.
Okay.
Those can be talking about substantially more money.
Okay.
Right. So we'll talk today about the different types of media placement.
Right.
What do you need to do?
Right.
And what do you need to do based on the size of your race?
Your race. So this isn't really a political conversation. It's really a money conversation.
It's a money conversation, but it's also a decision conversation. So
Okay,
what decisions do you need to
conversation.
make?
Nice.
If you're going to run for an office, I don't care what it is.
Okay.
What decisions do you need to make now so that you're in a good place in the spring and then going into summer and fall of 2022?
Okay. Because that is when these things
Yeah, I think
happen.
there's 3 states, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong on that. I believe there's just 3 states. I know Virginia is one of them that has their local and state elections in the odd year. The other 47 states have them in the even years.
Okay.
Why exactly that is, I'm sure there's a reason that I was supposed to know, and it's lost. I have no idea.
Sometimes
so-
that happens. If only we had a device, we could look it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
one of those. So I guess the first thing to talk about is agency selection.
Okay.
Right. So we're an agency. Everybody's watching here knows that. Many of the political candidates that we've ever ran into, and I mean, I've been involved in political campaigning for a long time.
It has been a long time.
We're not going to give it a year number, but it's been a while. And almost all of them have at least been approached by either a traditional advertising agency or someone identifying themselves as a political operative in some capacity that can help you as a candidate facilitate, getting you what you need to
Is
run.
that the same as like a campaigan manager? Somebody coming to you saying, I can help
no.
run this campaign for you?
Yes
or is
and
that
no.
different?
Somebody that deals just in the political realm, maybe they just do direct mail.
Okay.
Right? That's all they do. Or maybe they just do signs, or maybe they just do whatever. Pick your topic.
Okay.
But they like to specialize in the political arena. That's not necessarily an agency.
I understand.
I would consider an agency somebody that you can go to for a complete turnkey product and service that gets you everything that you need from soup to nuts. You're in, you're out, you're done. It's all good.
From soup to nuts.
A to Z, whatever you want to say. So that is what I would define as an acceptable agency for you to consider, somebody who can give you all of those things,
Right.
or
So
the vast
again,
majority of those things.
Right. So again, you're going to one place to get everything.
Which falls right in line with many of the conversations we've already had on this channel.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So as they pertain to a retail establishment. So from an agency selection standpoint,
okay,
you want somebody that can do multiple things for you. Maybe they can't do it all, but maybe they do a majority and you're comfortable with that majority. Okay, that's fine. You have to find your comfort level as to what that is. But here's the big thing to watch out for.
Okay.
Number one is retainer fees.
Retainer fees.
Retainer fees.
Right, because typically that comes along with this. If you have somebody, an agency, and they want you to sign a retainer fee or...
But we've seen the fees from other agencies all over the board, a couple $1,000s a month to a whole lot of thousands of dollars a month. And I've yet to understand what you as a candidate are going to receive for that many thousands of dollars a month in a retainer fee.
So you don't really think it's necessary?
We've never charged it.
You don't promote a retainer fee?
Going on 14 years of business, we've never charged a retainer fee, not a penny.
Well, I guess you do have that point.
14 years of business and not charging a retainer fee.
So obviously you feel it is not necessary.
Pretty sure.
So if
we would have been out of business 13 and a half years ago.
There is that.
Okay, so what do you get for the retainer fee? That's the question you should ask that agency if they hit you with that. Does that give you the ability for them to answer your call when you call?
Okay, so
answer
just
your
access
email
to them all the time.
Answer your email in a timely fashion. Is that what are you getting a certain number of maybe press releases in a given month? Okay, how many are they? How are they written? Yada yada yada. Ask the questions. Or does the retainer fee mean that by signing that piece of paper and paying us this amount, we promise we won't go after anybody else that's in your same race?
Oh. That's an interesting question.
Yes, it is.
Because there are a lot of people that do that, isn't there? And that's not really fair because they have all your information and they know what you're doing, and then they have this person's information.
Going on 14 years of business. Going on 14 years of business, never charged a retainer fee, never took more than one candidate in a single race.
In a race, right.
So, again, you can make a business out of that by staying on the ethical, proper side.
And I think it's okay to not be okay with that, right? I mean, if
as
I'm
a candidate?
running, as a candidate, if you're running for a race and this person is saying, I can give you these opportunities and I can help you, and then you find out later that they're also dealing with somebody else.
If they don't tell you that, I mean, we've had clients that came to us after they found out because they weren't told. They're pissed.
Oh yeah,
super pissed.
It makes sense because we're talking a lot of money here.
Not only a lot of money, but it's you're running for an office for maybe it's an ideological reason, maybe it's some people it's a family trait. Their mother or father was on this position and they want to continue that legacy. That's fine.
Right. Some people just want to serve.
Some people just want to serve. Yeah. It's ideological. It's like a school board. Take a simple race like a school board, and they're not always that simple. But just to break it down.
Right.
Maybe there's talk of a new school going in or something. We've had that here in our county.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar. So a lot of people want to come out and be a part of that process because that's what they feel led to do. Great. Right. You want to serve, that's awesome. That's great. But going back to the multiple people in the same race, again, 14 years never did it, and we're still here. Why? Well, if we want to work with you as a candidate, how are we supposed to guarantee you, the candidate, that we're going to give you all of our attention for your race if the very next hour after you walk out of our door, we're talking to the competitor?
Sure.
How does that mesh?
And then it goes also to quality too, right? I mean, how are we going to give you a good quality product if we're also talking to this?
I don't know how an agency does that. Mm-hmm. Like in their own mind, I don't know how they do that. Do they make more money doing it that way? Heck yeah.
Sure.
But is that really ethical?
Is it the right thing to do? Sure.
I always say no. So we don't do it. So that's the big thing. Retainer fees, having vocabulary just left me. Being the only one that they work with in the race.
Being the only one in the race.
Exclusivity was the word I was looking for there. Those are the two really, really big things you need to consider and think about when talking to somebody. Because as soon as you drop papers and you put those into the system, That's public knowledge.
Yeah, everybody knows.
Everybody knows. They know you are the treasurer, the name of your campaign. They know how to get a hold of you. It's all right there.
Right, and they're going to start calling.
Yeah, absolutely. The next day, if not that day of, they're going to be calling. And you're going to get hit with a whole lot of stuff, and it all sounds great, and they're all going to promise you to win, and blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, those are things you want to really, be aware of.
So agency selection. Right, and then
no retainer fees.
No retainer fees. So what
exclusivity?
Else? Exclusivity.
Yes.
That's a hard one to say.
So make sure those are there. You don't want to pay a retainer fee, and you don't want any. You want to make sure you have exclusivity to your race with that agency.
So is there more that we need to discuss when it comes to agency selection, or is that when it comes to political really? Pretty much the base of it.
The basis of
and then
there.
What all they can
what they can perform for you. Yes.
Are they able to do your print media and your mailers and your your digital media and your traditional along with your production.
Yeah, they need to be. Ideally, they should be able to do all of that.
Right.
And that would be your ideal scenario. We happen to do all of that.
Right.
Just saying to those
and
candidates
your website.
out there.
Sorry, I left out the website.
You got to do that too. With most races, some races,
right.
Like a school board or something like that. I need a website. We spoke to some people recently that are running for various positions in different counties, like a DA, for example.
Okay.
Probably don't need a website for that, right? I'd have 8 people come out of the woodwork to run for this race, and it's going to be a highly contested race. You're going to want a platform to send more people to engage them in conversation.
Sure.
But if it's a one or two-Z kind of race, you probably get a buy without worrying about that. Social media can carry that for you. But if you're in a more highly contested race and a more visible race, such as a county mayor or a sheriff or something of that nature,
you're going to want that.
You're going to want that at least a landing page. Even some judge races that get highly contested, you're going to want at least a landing page that you can put forth a bigger story, your platform. And if it's a judge race, it's apolitical, so you can't really have a platform. But you want to tell that story about you.
You can still, how you got started.
Yeah, who you are. So exactly.
Right. So that's your agency, and then social media is definitely something to look into, possibly a landing page. But let's talk about like signage.
Signage is
really
a big one.
Big at a political campaign.
Yeah. So the first thing any political candidate's going to need is a logo that's usually your sign design. Normally, it's the design of your sign.
Absolutely.
Normally. If it's a bigger race, you might have a separate logo that just identifies you. But in most cases, it's just the design of the yard sign. And then that can be replicated and reproduced into any media that you want. Now, when it comes to the yard signs, the typical size is an 18 by 24 inch. So it's 18 inches high, 24 inches wide.
Okay.
It goes on a wire frame, stick it in the ground. It's usually on 4 millimeter thick coroplast.
Right.
Simple, basic. Traditionally, those have been screen printed for years. But here's the next tip is screen printing is still a relatively inexpensive approach and way to go. But there's not as many quality screen printers in this country as there once was.
Okay.
Because digital printing is taking over that capacity. It's evolving more, right. So there are a couple ways to get a digital print done on a sign. Probably the most prominent way to do that is someone with a wide format printer that would print from a roll of vinyl.
Okay.
And then that vinyl is then cut to the size of the sign, the 18 by 24, and it's adhered to the sign on both sides.
Right.
All right. That'll last forever and a day. Great quality, but the cost is going to be a little bit high on that.
Okay. That was my next question.
So, and it's not going to be anywhere near the cost of a screen printing. That's going to be way cheaper than the vinyl print. However, over the last many years, the prices of the machinery for a digital direct print machine on a wide bed system, the prices have been a little bit more reasonable. They're still expensive, but more print shops have acquired this machinery.
Kind of like this whole supply and demand thing.
Right. So basically, you take that same sheet of coroplast, the machine will digitally print directly on that substrate. So it's not printed to the vinyl, and then the vinyl is put on. It's printed directly on the coroplast.
Okay.
And in some cases, depending on who you talk to and who you shop around for prices, depending on the size of the sign, the number of colors, and the quantity that you're getting, in some cases there you can actually get that done less expensive than screen printing.
Really?
Our price sheet, it does fluctuate and vary. Again, it's based on number of colors and so forth.
And
but
quantity.
Quantity and colors mainly. But yes, there are cases where a certain selection will be cheaper right now in that digital direct print than it would be in a screen.
Well, and is this not like most things that you get in bulk? The more you get, the cheaper the price for
absolutely.
the individual.
Whether it's screened or digital print doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah. Now, also on sizes, that's your typical size for a yard sign is the 18 by 24. But then as you drive around in political season, what else do you see a lot of? The bigger signs, right? And they're traditionally a 4 by 4 foot, so 48 inches square. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, I'm going to tell you, there's two problems with that.
Okay, well, tell me, what is the problem with that?
Well, let me tell you. So, number one, you're going from a design that's 18 by 24, which is a rectangle,
right,
to a 48 by 48, which is a
square.
There you go.
So now, I could see that would be a problem.
Can you take a design from a rectangle and blow it up to fit a square? Not and really, keep it proportionately equal. You cannot do that. It is not mathematically possible. So what does that mean? That means you have to pay your graphic designer to redesign your logo to fit a square from a rectangle. I see where you're
going with this. So this is something to keep in mind.
There's 2 points to that. Number one, your new design doesn't look like the old design.
Right.
It's visually different. So the whole point of advertising and marketing, especially what we're talking about in campaigning, is name recognition and branding, getting real estate in the mind of that voter. So when they see so-and-so's name, it equals whatever position they're running for.
That's right.
Right? So why in the hell would you change the design of that branding experience?
Because you really don't know any better. Or somebody led you the wrong way.
They led you the wrong way because they can make more money off that 4x4 sign.
Oh.
Okay. And they get to charge you for another design fee.
So when you're saying you're considering that logo and that design, these are things you need to keep in mind.
Yes.
When creating that logo.
Here's another tip. The second part of that is instead of doing a 4 foot wide by 4 foot tall, do a 4 foot wide by 3 foot tall.
Well, there you go.
Why? Because the other ones are 18 by 24.
Yeah.
If you double that, what do you get? 36 by 48.
Right.
So you're literally taking the exact same small rectangle and making it a double the size bigger rectangle. Your design stays exactly the same. There's no change. There's no extra design charge. Here's the other beauty of that. Actually, 2 beauty points. One, that 36 by 48 is cheaper to produce than the 4 by 4. It's less material, less color.
So you're really saying that people just, for one, it's that they don't know any better. They go to the 4 by 4 because that for some reason has become the next size up because people realize that they can charge more for it.
My opinion, that's why they do it.
Because it comes down to the money.
Here's the last benefit to having that 3 by 4 instead of 4 by 4. So most of your elections start, primary seasons are in the spring. What starts growing in the spring? Grass. So you put this 4 by 4 up with sign stakes, right?
Right.
4 feet off the ground, and you're zip tying the signs to your posts, your sign posts. And the bottom of the sign's probably this far off the ground. Well, what happens to the bottom foot of your sign?
You lose it.
It's getting, if people are cutting the grass, it's getting smacked up with weed eaters and all that, or the grass is covering up the bottom of your sign. So you've lost that anyway. It's pointless. It's a waste of money.
That's interesting.
So there's a lot of ways to look at why that's a bad idea. Mostly it's due to it's cheaper to do it the way I just said to do it.
Right.
It makes more sense.
Because you don't want to lose the bottom half of your sign to grass.
Well, the bottom fourth, but yeah.
Sorry.
So math. So bottom fourth, but most importantly, It is less expensive to produce that size. You don't have to change the design. It's the same thing, just double the size. It makes more sense. Just do it that way and you'll be happier.
Interesting. So do you think there should be a preference? Should everybody go for the bigger sign versus the small sign? That doesn't really matter.
No, what we tell people is it depends on, as far as quantity goes, it depends on the size of your race, right? So if you're in just a couple of precincts in your county versus a county-wide race, obviously you're going to need more signs the geographically larger area you go. And so we always start out with, if it's countywide, usually around 1,000 of the 18 by 24s. If it's less, like half the county for whatever the race is, usually it's about 500 of the 18 by 24s. As far as the larger 36 by 48 signs, what we always tell people is you need to find out where you can put these things, right?
Right.
'Cause that's not a traditional yard sign. It's intersections, it's at businesses.
Right. Well, and sometimes you have to have permission. Right.
Most of the time, if it's not your property, you got to have permission, or if it's a state right of way. I believe in a state right-of-way. In some states, check your local codes for that. But in some locales, you're allowed to put those in a state right-of-way, and you're running for an elected position there. That's why you come to an intersection, you see 712 political signs right there by the stop sign.
Right, because it's allowed.
It's allowed in some jurisdictions. You know, check your local laws for that. Don't hold me to that everywhere. But yeah, definitely anything other than that, you definitely want permission for it from the property owner, landowner, whatever. So yeah, there's a lot to consider that when it comes to signs. Now, the next thing that everybody goes to is mailers.
Yes,
right?
they do.
Mailers, I'll give you my quick on mailers. I absolutely despise them. I hate them. I think they're a horrible waste of time, energy, and money.
Well, that was going to be my question, is in this age where we've really evolved into digital media, does the mailer still have a place?
In my personal opinion, it does not, and here's why. Let's just say, I mean, from a retail standpoint, let's say if you have a 3% response rate on a direct mail piece, you're having a good day.
Okay.
For the sake of this discussion, I will give you a 20% response rate on political mail. Let's say 20% of what you send out is effective.
Okay.
Go one better. Let's say half of them are effective.
Okay.
50%. You just dropped 10 grand on a mailer and you're getting a 50% response rate. That means you just took $5,000 and threw it in the trash can.
Right. That's a lot of money.
That's exactly what you just did.
Right.
Right. And 50 is huge. I always use 20 when I'm talking to people because I still think that's high, which means $8,000 just went in the trash can.
Yeah.
And that hurts me, and it's not my money.
Right.
So those are things to think about. Personally, that's why I despise direct mail. However, that said, in a political environment, we still do an absolute ton of direct mail.
Sure.
It's a lot of it comes down to what the candidate wants, but also what's the competition doing.
Right. So if the competition's doing mailers, then...
And is there budget available? That's number 3. Is there budget available for that? I would not make direct mail a primary buy in a campaign. It can be good as a secondary, even a tertiary buy, but not primary. There's better things to use that money on.
Right.
And if you have that solid, then yeah, let's talk about a direct mail piece.
When a lot of people, I mean, during political season, your mailbox is flooded with these, and a lot of people do multiple. Very large size. So, I mean, there's a lot of money.
Well, there's a ton of money. And I mean, political campaign mailing and direct mail is a huge industry all by itself.
Sure.
I mean, it is huge. Most mail houses depend on that to survive every 2 years. And then those 3, that in the odd years, those 3 states, everybody flocks to those 3 states to get every dollar they can to survive until the next year. There's an absolute ton of money into that. And we could talk forever about what to look out for there. But unless the postal prices have changed in regards to this, and I'll be honest, I have not checked them this year, but we always recommend, if we're going to do a mailer, a lot of people recommend a 6x9 size, 6 inches by 9 inches. We say go 6x11. Why? It's 2 more inches of real estate on each side of the sign. And when you're designing that extra real estate is
a lot.
That's
it's
a
huge.
lot. That is absolutely huge to be able to make the product look just so much better. And we're talking a couple pennies at most more, depending on what material it's printed on. Mm-hmm. We're talking a couple pennies more per piece to have that done. But here's the thing. Unless the Postal Service has changed it, the price to mail a 6x9 is the same as the price to mail a 6x11.
Oh.
So if the postage is the same and you're only a couple cents difference on the print,
why not?
Why the hell not? I mean,
Why
you're
not?
getting all that extra room. So that's tip number 1.
Well, and that's really important, too, because a lot of people want a lot of information on this mailer.
Sometimes too much.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's that little extra space
makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference. Yeah. Huge difference.
Yeah.
Well, what about, I mean, traditional media?
Traditional media, yes, absolutely. So television, yes. I don't think we've done any radio for a political campaign and hell, I don't know, 4 years, 6 years, maybe longer. I don't know. It's been a while.
You don't feel like there's any value for political in radio?
In a radio environment, no. And in some of the markets that we work in, our market specifically, the last couple of cycles, a couple of the local stations wouldn't even dabble in the political. They didn't even want to mess with it.
Oh, really?
So there wasn't an option to even be there.
So there's that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember looking into it maybe 2 cycles ago because a client asked and couldn't even get a rate card. They weren't even playing in the game. The rest of it, say television, cable, and so forth, definitely a viable option. We do an absolute ton of that during the seasons for political, and that can work very, very well. But just like in a retail conversation, you're looking for the same things. You want a quality production piece,
right,
that speaks to your message. And in this case, it's your platform. What are you running on?
Right. Why are you here?
What's your character? What's your integrity? What's your issue-based, yada, yada, whatever your stance is. Define that. Build the campaign around that.
Right.
And just like every other conversation we've talked about here when it comes to retail business, all of your forms of media need to speak to the same message.
Right. And they need to look the same, carrying that same brand
look and
over.
feel the same, yes.
Right.
That's why everything starts with that logo or the sign, if that's what you're using, and expands out from there.
Right. So if you're dealing with maybe a production company or an agency that are like, we really want to do this for your TV or your digital media spot, wherever you're going to put it, you want to, and they're trying to direct you in a different way, it's really important to say, no, we've already got our theme here. We've got our brand.
Keep it consistent.
We need to carry this over.
Consistency is key across the board. And then with that, I think the last thing to probably touch on there from a not a traditional standpoint, but from a digital background, we briefly touched on some social media aspects before. I can't think of a race that would not need a social media platform, at least a Facebook campaign page, at least. And then you also want come back to social media in a second. You also do want some method of collecting donations, contributions to your campaign. And that PayPal, not to push PayPal, I'm not. It just happens to be fairly easy to set up. They do have a section for political campaign committees, and they make it fairly easy to have that set up and allow for the donations to come through. So that is an option to consider for that. I mean, there's umpteen different ways to get that donation, be it a traditional, they're going to mail you a check, or other methods online to have that donation paid for and sent in. But we find that PayPal works just fine with that. I've been using it for a long time. But
going back to social media, I mean, it really is a great tool to if you're doing this, you're wanting to serve, you're wanting to be a part of your community, you're wanting to show your community what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that social media is huge because you can constantly get in front of your audience.
Yeah, and so I had this conversation
on a day-to-day basis.
Just yesterday with a lady running for office, and so start with social media. Let's just get that done. You're going to you're going to a so-and-so function next week. It's a political function. Get a picture with somebody that's there and just post it and say, hey, I had a great talk at, wherever you were, discussed blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
It's a quick little blurb. It just gets it out there.
Well, and even before that, if there's an invite or any information that has gone out in regards to this event, can't wait to speak at this event.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited.
It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. And those are things that you as a candidate can do for free to maximize your exposure there without having to spend anything but your time.
Right.
It just takes a little time to have somebody snap a picture of you on your phone, upload the thing to your social media platform, write a little blurb about it, tag a few people in it, let it go.
Right. I mean, we had a friend that ran for school board, and, even just pictures of her working, it was my most favorite picture of her was actually, she was getting ready to run out the door, had her purse over her shoulder and remembered something and sat down in a chair and had her laptop, never took her purse off, still had like her keys right there. It was just like, the woman never sleeps, I think is or she never stops the caption. This woman never stops.
So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be staged. Doesn't have to be anything like that. It's just organic and organic engagement with the community to try and get that message out there and build your name recognition. But beyond that, using those same social platforms from an ad campaign standpoint, definitely a conversation that needs to be had depending on your race. And then beyond that, anything else that we've talked about here as well from the digital capabilities.
Sure.
Display campaigns, video campaigns, Hulu. Now Hulu might be a little tricky on the political, but you have to be approved ahead of time by Hulu. But other connected TV devices as well. I think I just spoke out of turn on Hulu, but other connected TV options exist out there to run a video message, 15, 30-second piece. Definitely need to be in the consideration. There's some other tricks of the trade in how to geographically target polling locations. I'm probably going to leave that one right there.
Okay.
so I don't get in trouble or potential trouble with the FEC. But
when it comes to like a smaller budget, and you might not have the budget for those mailers that are so popular, don't you think digital is a better way to go? Because you really can see a better return on your 100%. Spend.
Absolutely.
You will need somewhere to send those people, though, if you do a digital campaign.
Yeah, but you can send them to your social media platforms if that's what you have. You don't necessarily need a landing page in order to do that. We find it to be more conducive to have a landing page if you're going to do a digital campaign where you need to send somebody elsewhere. Why? Because you're sending them to a place that you can control the environment. Right, so somebody else can be posting and then tagging you, and your feed gets gobbledygooked with stuff that you didn't really put on there.
Right, sure. Well, that makes sense.
And so it's hard to direct people on say Facebook, for example. It's hard to direct them through what you want them to know. Whereas if you have the landing page or the entire website, multiple pages, designed in such a way that this is how I want them to read the information about me, about the platform, about my history, about what I want to do and how I want to serve.
It just cuts out all confusion.
All confusion's cut out. It's laid out very succinctly. They know exactly what to do. They know where to donate. If they want to volunteer time, they want a yard sign, they want to sign up for a newsletter, whatever you want, it's all right there. So the flow of engagement is better if you can send them to a landing page. But like I said, depending on the size of your race, you may not need that.
Okay.
So also talking about people trying to hit you up for everything under the sun is don't let everybody try and sell you into a website. You may not need that.
Interesting.
And even if you do, keep in mind, you may have an 8-month campaign cycle. Maybe you're an elected seat that renews every 4 years. Okay, so you just paid a ton of money to have a website good for 8 months. And then 4 years from now, I can pretty much guarantee that whatever technology changes in 4 years, that website ain't going to be working then.
Wow.
Right. So you got to keep that in mind too.
Right. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah. You can simplify
you can keep it really simple.
Totally simple.
Well, and the other really important thing to note too about political is you have to prepay, right? I mean,
we require that.
Right.
I mean, not every agency may require a prepayment from political. Traditional media does.
Right.
I don't know a single traditional media that doesn't require a political candidate to prepay. And that just kind of makes sense.
Right.
So there is that to keep in mind. You want to make sure the funds are there. And in a lot of cases, candidates have to self-fund the campaign. They give a loan to the campaign committee from their own personal cash in order to get things started. And check your local laws again on this, but once the donations start coming in, the campaign's over, extra cash that's in the account, you may, under some circumstances, depending on where you live and how you filed, be able to use that money to pay yourself back the loan that you lent the campaign.
Wow.
In some cases.
Right.
That's not going to hold true for every scenario, but traditionally that's how a lot of people that we've worked with have operated in that capacity. So... But the bottom line is you have to have the money to start.
Right.
The donations aren't going to come in the moment you sign the papers.
Right. There is that. You have to start having some events and getting your name out there and getting that social media built.
And that's going to cost you a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And getting that backing and that support is really important.
Sure.
Well, that's just a lot of information.
Yeah, and I kind of cut that short.
You did.
33 and a half minutes short.
You did. He did say I could talk forever about this. And
there you go.
You almost made it forever. Kind of.
Half an hour. Okay. Wrap this shit up.
Well, thanks so much for having this conversation with me today and just helping to educate people on different ways that they can go about getting involved in their own political campaigns. If you have any questions about this, we invite you to come down and talk to us at any time. You can find us on our website, our social media. You can give us a call. Like always, you're more than welcome to come down. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Please make sure to like that button if you haven't already and subscribe to the channel. And like we always say, guys,
until
next time.